Welcome everybody to Crystal Kyle and Friends. Today we're going to be talking to Green Party presidential candidate Jill Stein. I'm really looking forward to this. We had Chase Oliver on a few weeks ago. I did that interview alone with him, but I think it was very good. We got into all sorts of substantive stuff and went into areas of disagreement and agreement, and it was just fun, and I love that we're having Jill Stein on. I mean, honestly, I don't think I told you this off air, but I'd love to have on Cornel West or RFK or Kamala Harris or Donald Trump. That'd be awesome, but, you know, I doubt certain ones of those would actually do it.
I mean, RFK would probably do it.
Would he really?
I mean, I've already interviewed him like 4 times.
I know, but I've been shitting on that guy since day one, bro.
I've gotten into it with him very aggressively to his face, and he still is like willing to come back. So, yeah, if you want to interview RFK Jr., you probably do it.
That could be fun.
All right, well.
That could be a lot of fun.
We'll consider that one.
Anyway, so.
Maybe I'll let you handle this one since I've already.
Oh, alone? Oh, man. But you'd be like a moderating influence.
Probably sick of me.
But you'd be like a moderating influence because I have so many issues with that guy. So many issues with that guy. I know you do too, but you could be more diplomatic. You know?
I am more diplomatic.
Yeah, because we don't need to get into this, but some of his stuff is just like, what the fuck are you talking about? But anyway, so before we get to Jill Stein, man, do we have something to talk about today? So I wanted to save this for Crystal Kyle and Friends. I didn't do a segment on my show about it.
Yeah.
But Trump went to the big Black journalist event.
Yeah.
What's the acronym?
National Association of Black Journalists, NABJ.
Okay.
Yeah.
And as we all know, he's very hostile to journalists. And he's not the biggest fan of black people. So
that all came out. That was very clear.
That all came out. So you had Harris Faulkner, the Fox host, who's conservative, was one of 3 journalists that were up on stage. Of course, she was the worst. The other 2 I thought did a great job in it. But, man, he lost his composure big time.
Oh, yeah.
You know, all that stuff about post-shooting, like, oh, you know, he's all about unity now. And to be fair, like, genuinely, you could see it in his face that he was shaken up for, like, 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
But after 2 or 3 days, he was like, I'm back to being Trump. I'm reverting to homeostasis.
Yeah. Well, there was also, like, a weird backstory, too, where they were having tech issues and which is your nightmare, too, as a host. Like, it's the worst, especially you're going to interview a presidential candidate and you're making him wait. And so I think he had to wait like 30 minutes before they go on. And so I think my interpretation is he came loaded for bear anyway and came intentionally because he wanted to spark a controversy and re-grab the headlines in whatever way he possibly could. But then also he got very old man irritated by the delay. And so the very first question out of the gates, he's just like off the rails, pissed off, attacking them, et cetera, et cetera. You want me to go ahead and...
Yeah, go through
Okay, all right. So guys, go ahead and pull up the very first question that Trump got asked out of the gates.
I want to start by addressing the elephant in the room, sir. A lot of people did not think it was appropriate for you to be here today. You have pushed false claims about some of your rivals, from Nikki Haley to former President Barack Obama, saying that they were not born in the United States, which is not true. You have told 4 congresswomen of color who were American citizens to go back to where they came from. You have used words like animal and rabid to describe black district attorneys. You've attacked black journalists, calling them a loser, saying the questions that they ask are, quote, stupid and racist. You've had dinner with a white supremacist at your Mar-a-Lago resort. So my question, sir, now that you are asking black supporters to vote for you, why should black voters trust you after you have used language like that?
Well, first of all, I don't think I've ever been asked a question in such a horrible manner. First question. You don't even say, hello, how are you? Are you with ABC? I was invited here, and I was told my opponent, whether it was Biden or Kamala, I was told my opponent was going to be here. It turned out my opponent isn't here. You invited me under false pretense. And then you said, you can't do it with Zoom. Well, you know, where's Zoom? She's going to do it with Zoom, and she's not coming. And then you were half an hour late. Just so we understand, I have too much respect for you to be late. They couldn't get their equipment working or something was wrong.
Mr. President, I would love if you can answer the question on your rhetoric and why you believe that black voters should trust you with another 4 years.
I have been the best president for the black population since Abraham Lincoln. That's my answer.
Better than President Johnson, who signed the Voting Rights Act?
And for you to start off a question and answer period, especially when you're 35 minutes late because you couldn't get your equipment to work in such a hostile manner, I think it's a disgrace.
So quintessential Trump there. I mean, just like instantly attacking the journalists, complaining, goes on this long, like barely decipherable monologue about Zoom, and you said she'd have Zoom, and there's no Zoom, or whatever. And then, you know, makes these wild, I'm the best president for black people since Abraham Lincoln, et cetera, et cetera.
All right, so a couple points. First of all, this is the first non-ass-kissing interview that I've seen with him in a very, very long time.
True.
And he absolutely imploded. He's used to going on, you know, right-wing outlets and like, patty cake, baker's man. I'm the best president ever. Like, he's used to doing that. And now, under minimal you have to expect those questions, bro.
I mean,
those are obvious.
Has to ask that first question.
Fucking, of course she does.
Their whole organization, which I do think this is ridiculous, there was a whole controversy over having him at all. They had board members who were resigning because of quote-unquote platforming him. Now, my personal opinion is he's a former president, he's a presidential candidate, and by the way, I think we all learned a lot from this exchange, and so I'm glad that they did it. But she has to ask you that question. So for you to be so thin-skinned right from the jump, no, it doesn't make you look good, except for to your band of sycophants who are already in your camp.
Okay, so he also lied there when he's like, oh, you didn't even say, like, hello, how are you? He said that. That's actually not true. So at the very beginning, just before that clip played, I watched the entire thing earlier, and that woman who asked the tough question said, hello, Mr. President, thank you so much for taking an hour of your time to be with us. So even that's not true. So it's kind of, like, the way his brain works is kind of fascinating to me, because it's like he really does just disregard the stuff that he wants to disregard and latch on to the things he wants to latch onto.
Yeah.
Because anybody can rewind, you know, 2.5 minutes and see that she didn't come in like a bull in a china shop. She actually led with that, and then she asked a fair and tough question. I don't know if you caught it, but when he said, I've been the best president for black people since Abraham Lincoln, one of the journalists chimes in and says, LBJ signed the Voting Rights Act.
Yeah.
And what I find really interesting about that part is that this is such a clear example of how bravado and charisma and the way you talk can sort of dominate a conversation, because nobody even noticed that she said that.
Right.
Right? Like, he's still doing his Trump thing and like dominating the room, and it just, like, nobody heard her say the thing that is a stone cold fact that is obviously correct, that you're nowhere near the best president for black people. LBJ and the Civil Rights Act, Voting Rights Act, and the Civil Rights Act. What are we fucking debating here?
Right.
That's the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life. And so
but he did some economic opportunity zones, Kyle, so he's practically Abe Lincoln out here.
Right. And then the stuff that she brought up, I mean, look, it's all fair game, obviously. Nikki Haley and Barack Obama did varying degrees of birtherism with both of them.
Yeah.
I had forgotten about the go back to your country thing. I think he said that once about Ilhan Omar said it about others.
That's
he
right.
very famously referred to certain countries as shithole countries.
Yep.
And you're never going to guess what color their skin was from the countries he said are shithole countries.
Interesting. It was probably Europe, right?
Yeah, he was talking about Sweden when he said that. And then he, of course, they brought up he attacked journalists. What they actually forgot is he sued CNN for hundreds of millions of dollars, and he lost that case like immediately. But I think he sued him for like $400 million. So again, another hilarious thing. Oh, I missed her free speech. Anyway, I'm gonna sue the journalists who say mean things about me. It's like, shut the fuck up. And I also forgot about the dining with Nick Fuentes thing.
Yeah.
Like, that's fucking crazy. This guy is like an open Nazi. He debated Alex Jones, and he took the position, I think Hitler was good.
And wasn't it was Fuentes and Kanye West at that dinner,
and
right?
I think it was Milo Yiannopoulos, too. Right? I mean, that's just a hodgepodge of the dumbest fucking assholes in the country.
Yeah, like I said, it was not only an entirely fair question. She pretty much had to ask that question out of the gates. But, you know, I do think he came with a goal in mind, which was
controversy. He's
feeling a little desperate right now. You know, the polls are slipping away from him. Kamala is becoming very popular very quickly. He was, you know, almost assassinated a couple weeks ago, and no one cares.
Nobody cares.
The only thing that's been in a headline for him is about his weird vice presidential pick. And, you know, all this bizarre childless cat ladies and psychopaths and all this nonsense he's been saying, and not to mention, like, you know, the viral memes about the couch and his awkward, like how his awkwardness will go viral, just like the Diet Mountain Dew thing. Like that's what's been in the headline for him. So it's not only not about him, it's like a negative about his campaign looking like a bunch of losers. And so I think he really thought, I am going to use this event to grab back the headlines. And the way that now it's very clear this was a concerted strategy that he wanted to deploy here. He decides on a question about, you know, do you agree with this idea Kamala Harris is a DEI candidate?
Yeah, throw that clip. We have that clip.
He goes in on her identity. Let's take a listen to that.
She was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she black?
She has always
but
identified as a black woman. She went to a historically black college.
I respect either one, but she obviously doesn't, because she was Indian all the way, and then all of a sudden she made a turn, and she became a black person.
Just to be clear, sir, do you believe that she is...
I think somebody should look into that, too, when you ask continue in a very hostile, nasty tone.
It's a direct question, sir. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is a DEI hire, as some Republicans
really don't
have
know.
said?
I mean, I really don't know. Could be. There are some, and there are...
So that's the whole thing that he wanted to unfurl there. And we know it was a strategy because then he went to a rally where they had on the screen like some headline about Kamala Harris, first Indian American senator. And then some of the speakers at the rally were, you know, using some of the same talking points. So just to be clear, Kamala Harris's dad is Jamaican, he is black, her mom is Indian, and she is biracial. So there you go.
He also tweeted a picture of Kamala with her mom's side of the family.
Yeah.
And they're Indian.
Yeah.
And he did that as thinking he was doing some sort of a gotcha, like, aha, Indian. And somebody pointed this out on Twitter. The concept of being biracial is seemingly breaking his brain, and many people on the right breaking their brains. Okay, I have really strong opinions about this.
Yeah.
There's no way this is going to work. There's 0% chance this is going to work. It's just not going to work, because one of their main criticisms of the left is you guys are obsessed with race. You won't shut the fuck up about race. You won't shut the fuck up about gender. And the left, so far, since Kamala has become the nominee, has said, donut about fucking race. This is the most I've heard about race. So they accuse Democrats of talking about race nonstop. Then he cannot shut the fuck up talking about race. So he's doing the thing he accuses the left of doing. Now, the reason I know this is not going to work is because we saw this unfold with Obama.
Yes.
Now, Trump didn't run against Obama, but it's kind of like widely understood that if Trump did run against Obama, Obama would have beaten him.
Yeah.
Even going for that third term. I know we have term limits and we can't have that, but he would have theoretically beat him. And the reason is Obama, being a black man, baited Trump into colossally overreaching. And the overreach is, actually, he's not American. There are many questions about his birth certificate and where he came from. Just to put this in perspective, even Bill O'Reilly on Fox News, who was the #1 host at the time, even he did a segment where he came out and he said, look, this is just fundamentally not true. We have the birth certificate from Hawaii. We have the long form and the short form. We have an announcement in a newspaper in Hawaii about his birth. You guys, just drop it. Just drop it. Basically, Bill O'Reilly understood this is a little too racist. This is going a little too far. And you always make this point. Are there people in the country that are racist? Sure. But people don't like to think of themselves as racist. Even if they are racist, they don't like to think of themselves as racist.
Right.
And he's making a big deal about her being Indian. And like, okay, the harshest thing you could levy against her is at times you played up your Indian heritage, at times you played up your black heritage. Whoop-de-freaking-do!
Right.
Anybody in her shoes would have done the same shit, given a certain circumstance.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you mentioned this the other day in the car when we were driving. People code switch all the time. Do I talk to my mom the exact same way I talk to Corin, my best friend?
Right.
Fucking of course not.
Yeah.
I'm a totally different person.
When you're with your kids, when you're with your friends, when you're in the workplace, like, of course, everybody has different modes that they adopt.
This is going to fail so hard.
Well, the other reason it's going to fail is because Democrats have gotten a little smarter because he's counting on a massive overreaction and everybody running around with their hair on fire, clutching their pearls, calling him racist, calling him sexist, and then creating that sense of like, oh, see, they're the ones that are obsessed with race and gender. But Kamala, I thought, had a perfect response in her rally. She said, Donald Trump spoke at the annual meeting of the National Association of Black Journalists. And by the way, when she said that, she paused. Everyone was laughing because they knew, like, oh, yeah, we know what he said. And she goes, the divisiveness and disrespect. Let me just say the American people deserve better. We deserve a leader who understands that our differences do not divide us. And she also said, like, basically, same old, same old. And that's the perfect way to do it. She made it not about her. She didn't go racism, sexism, blah, blah, blah. She said, this is, you know, she kind of laughed in his face and said, this is the same old shit we've seen a million times before, and you all deserve better. So making it about the country rather than internalizing it to herself. And that would be my suggestion. Just keep it moving. Let them obsess, oh, DEI, and you're a woman, and you're a whore, and you're not Indian, but you are black, but you aren't black, but you said you weren't black. Let them do all that bullshit, and you just keep it moving with what you want to say about, you know, whatever you think is going to impact middle-class people and help their lives. Like, that's the best possible approach, because you're so right. They think they're in a Hillary 2016 dynamic, and they're not. And the thing is that, listen, the overt proud of being racist, they're already voting for you, Donald Trump. Don't worry about it.
That's right.
Most Americans, even ones who do have some racial bias, which many do not want to see themselves as racist. And that was part of Obama's appeal. People like the story of America in which an Obama can succeed. You know, a son of immigrants with this complicated backstory, biracial upbringing. They liked that this is possible in America. And they liked the story of themselves personally being the type of person who could vote for an Obama-type figure. And so if your attack on Kamala Harris is explicitly about her race, like, you have to give people a non-racist, sexist reason to vote against her, because they don't want part of their identity to be, I voted against her because of her biracial identity. That is not going to be a selling point.
By the way, interesting fact, apparently Trump's family is from a small town in Germany, but Trump's father, for whatever reason, didn't want people to know that they were from a small town in Germany.
Oh, really?
So he told Donald Trump, hey, tell people that our lineage is from Sweden. And he even put that in the art of the deal. And Trump even questioned his dad, like, why do we have to say we're from Sweden? I don't understand. Can't we just tell people we're from Germany? So there was a period of time where that family did some, like, selective stuff with his identity. And nobody's a fuck about that, because, you know, one time they said Swedish, one time Irish, one time honest and said German.
Yeah.
But it's like, people don't think about that. People don't care because it's Trump and he gets a pass. And by the way, I don't think that's a big deal. I don't give a fuck, you know, what part of your lineage you play up or play down or whatever.
Right.
But you got to extend that same grace to Kamala Harris, because look, the bottom line is this. It's true. Just the fact that she's a black woman is short-circuiting their brains and making them overreach.
Yeah.
And it just, like, you guys are being, there's that word again, really fucking weird about this.
Yeah.
It's really
so you're
fucking
not
weird.
beating the weird charges.
All you have to do is go through her record, find a couple policies that you think are bad, hammer away on those policies, or go through her list of donors, find one that donates to her that doesn't donate to you guys. Most of them do donate to both, right? But just find one you don't like and say, look, the corruption, she took $700,000 from this person. She's going to be a puppet of this person. That's how you run a campaign. None of that is on their mind right now.
Yeah.
None of that is on their mind right now.
The other part of this is like a humiliation ritual for JD Vance, too, because JD Vance is married to an Indian woman, and his kids are biracial.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, and I think one of them is actually named, like, Vivek. So he has to go out there and, like, be on board with this attack. I think he said he thought it was hilarious. Like, so this is...
He's sleeping on the couch tonight, unintended.
He won't be sad about that, I guess.
No, he won't be.
So I think perhaps another aspect of Trump settling on this particular line of attack is he likes to put his people through these types of humiliation rituals to see if they will defend even something that should be like an attack on themselves, that should be indefensible. And so, you know, JD Vance will go out there and, like, just sort of throw his own family under the bus in the service of Donald Trump. So, you know, I think that's another interesting element of this, to say the least.
Yeah, I think Corin was always right about him when he used to say very early on, he says these things on purpose. to generate controversy and to get headlines.
Yeah.
And at the time, I thought, nah, he's just an old man and he's saying old man shit and he shoots from the hip. But no, now after so many years, it's very obvious that's what he does.
He thinks any controversy is good controversy.
Yeah, that's right.
He thinks any of it will inure to his benefit. He's wrong about that.
He said it when Burgum endorsed him. He was like, you know, Governor, you're great, but you know what? You're a little too clean. And sometimes controversy is a good thing. You need a little more controversy, Governor. I remember watching that clip going, oh, he knows. He knows. So throw to the JD Vance
so
now.
This was hilarious. As I was saying, all the headlines about the Trump campaign lately have been about JD Vance and how he's weird and weird stuff he's said and his lack of charisma and all of that sort of thing. And so Trump gets asked a good question by Harris Faulkner. Do you think JD Vance is ready on day one? Take a listen.
And that's why this decision is important this time. Bad things happen. You said it twice. When you look at JD Vance, is he ready on day one?
Does he what?
Ready on day one, if he has to be.
I've always had great respect for him, and for the other candidates too. But I will say this, and I think this is well documented. Historically, the vice president, in terms of the election, does not have any impact. I mean, virtually no impact. You have 2 or 3 days where there's a lot of commotion as to who, like you're having it on the Democrat side, who it's going to be. And then that dies down, and it's all about the presidential pick. Virtually never has it mattered. Maybe Lyndon Johnson mattered for different reasons of what we're talking about, not for vote reasons, but for political reasons, other political reasons. But historically, the choice of a vice president makes no difference.
So he will not answer directly, is he ready on day one? He then vaguely says, like, well, I've had great respect for many people. And then he says, well, vice president doesn't really matter anyway, so it's not important.
It definitely matters because you're old and obese. And also, it's possible you picked the most unpopular VP of all time. That's very possible by the numbers. Palin was even more popular.
He literally did. Just by the numbers, he literally did.
And it's possible in the final running for Kamala could potentially be the most popular VP of all time if she picks Tim Walz.
Yeah.
Right? So that's going to matter, especially with an election that is seemingly as close as it is with the razor-thin margins. I do think that matters. But you're right. The main point is he has zero faith in him. And look, the reporting was Elon Musk, Tucker Carlson, Donald Trump Jr., and Eric Trump were the ones who twisted his arm and convinced him to pick JD Vance. He didn't want to. He wanted to pick Burgum, according to all the reporting. But he thought, you know, whatever my sons are telling me, and then plus I got these two guys who I respect, Elon Musk and Tucker Carlson. I think they have good political instincts. They get great numbers. Very rich, and this one gets great numbers.
Yeah, he would be suckered in by that.
And guess what?
Yeah.
They were dead fucking wrong. Dead wrong.
To me, the reason he picked JD Vance is solely because he thinks that, so JD Vance has said publicly that he would not have certified the Electoral College vote.
Yeah.
And so in the final estimation, when it came down to it, Mike Pence found a shred of integrity and wouldn't cross that final Rubicon. And he would worry that a Glenn Youngkin or a Doug Burgum or a Marco Rubio may not go along with him to just like completely subvert the country and the Constitution and whatever. And JD Vance, and this is part of the, you know, humiliation ritual that he's putting him through right now, has sufficiently demonstrated his utter fealty to Donald Trump that he thinks in the event that they were in a similar situation, he would cross that final Rubicon. And of course, he's picked in a moment when Joe Biden is the top of the ticket, the polls look damn good for Trump, and the conversation about moving Biden off the ticket had quieted down. So he thought he could have the luxury of picking someone like JD Vance, and it's been a disaster. It's just been an utter disaster. We did, on Breaking Points, we had pollsters commission word clouds of Kamala Harris and JD Vance of like, you ask people, okay, what's the first word that comes to mind? And actually the top word was like unknown, unsure, but then right below that was weird. And unknown is, on the one hand, you could say, okay, well, there's still an opportunity for the Republicans to define him. But this is what you're getting from Trump. Like, Trump is not helping him. He's hanging him out to dry. And the Democrats are aggressively defining him. So it's a disastrous pick because it makes it easier. The Democratic lens that they want to put on this election is that the Republicans are weird. They're extreme. They're fringe. They're freaks. And JD Vance helps you to be able to make that case very effectively. So that's why and then he doesn't bring anything to the table in terms of he underperformed in Ohio. He underperformed specifically in Ohio and Appalachia, where he's supposed to have this like unique connection or whatever. So he's a drag in every single way. And Trump appears to know it. I saw Josh Barrett tweet, and I think this is probably true, that he's clearly repeating here with his like, the VP doesn't matter electorally anyway. He's clearly repeating what his advisors are telling him behind the scenes to help him cope with his disappointment over his own choice.
Yeah, so to walk through it, the most obvious thing is he has zero charisma. JD Vance has no charisma. He has negative charisma.
Yeah.
Like, it is shocking how, you know how when some people talk, like, you kind of want to listen and your brain allows you to very easily follow along.
Yeah.
And when other people talk, you're...
Yeah.
That's JD Vance. So on this one, Trump's instincts actually hurt him too, because he doesn't want anybody to potentially outshine him. That's why somebody like Carrie Lake was totally off the table, because she's dynamic and charismatic, and he doesn't want somebody that takes the spotlight off him.
Yeah.
But the fact that he went with the most boring man in America really, really fucking hurts him. So that's one thing. The other thing is, as you pointed out, he's from a state that you're going to win anyway. He's from Ohio. This doesn't help you in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
With Kamala, the last people who are in contention are all from states where potentially she might need a little help, and they could maybe get her over the edge.
Right.
Right? So strategically, it makes zero sense. And then I think, most importantly, he doesn't appeal to any of the groups that Trump is struggling with. Like, he probably wanted to shore up, say, suburban women.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, would you look at that? Your fucking idiot VP is out there shitting on every single woman in the country, which is millions and millions and millions of people.
Yeah.
And by the way, he has a plethora of extreme comments that the left is currently digging up like gold.
Yeah.
I mean, this fucking idiot said people shouldn't even be allowed to cross state borders in order to get an abortion.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
if you're from a red state and you want to go to a blue state where it's legal to get an abortion, he wants to make that illegal.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to ban porn. He wants to ban porn.
Yeah.
This is presumably the sort of stuff that when Trump said, I'm against Project 2025, this is what he had in mind, right? Okay, then why did you pick a VP who's for all the worst parts of Project 2025?
Right. Well, the two big issues Trump knows that he has are on abortion and Project 2025. And JD Vance brings massive baggage on both of those things.
That's exactly right.
So it's, it's just a horrendous choice across the board. It's sort of amazing. I'm actually shocked he made such a bad choice. I gave him more credit than I should have on this, because Mike Pence was like a savvy, tactically sound choice at the time.
He needed to shore up evangelicals.
He needed to shore up evangelicals.
He was a bachelor from New York, blah, blah, blah.
He made a pragmatic decision. He brings in Mike Pence. I thought he would do something similarly pragmatic this time around, but no, especially because, they were trying for a different coalition this time. They were trying for a more diverse coalition. Like, they'd liked the idea of, we're going to eat into the young people, lead the Democrats have. We're going to eat into some of the margin with black voters, with Latino voters, et cetera. And so, you want to present a little bit of a different image. Instead, JD Vance has been spending the past number of years trying to atone for his anti-MAGA sins by going on podcasts and saying the weirdest, most off-putting stuff you can possibly imagine. That's how he's speaks in this niche online cultural right-wing language that also is incredibly off-putting. Even as the DEI stuff, even Trump won't say it because he knows those that language that Vivek Ramaswamy and JD Vance use and whatever, it doesn't even make sense. You need a decoder ring to understand it as just a normal person.
That's right.
So you picked the guy who's been spending years at this point living and swimming in those waters so much that he has no idea how to speak in a way that would be generally appealing. He'll take a policy like child tax credit that literally has 70% support and describe it in a way that's going to turn off 90% of the country. It's incredible, honestly.
He needed, honestly, a woman who was moderate on abortion. I think that's what he needed.
Yeah.
And we're as far from that as you can possibly get. Elise Stefanik is, she's from New York.
And she was more of a moderate on abortion, I think.
I think she was.
Or maybe a Nancy Mace.
I mean, she's also insane, to be clear. All these people are insane.
Of course.
You needed somebody at least that had the optics of being reasonable. And he failed on that front. Now, by the way, there's one other part that I wanted to talk about from that interview he did. He was asked about basically total immunity for cops, not qualified immunity, absolute immunity for cops. And they brought up a recent example of like a horrible police brutality thing where they basically like murdered somebody in cold blood.
Like assassinated this woman.
And his answer was like, you know, that one, I think I saw, I don't like that very much. I don't like that very much. But we're talking about, for immunity, we're talking about things that are much different. Things where it's a tough choice and they go with their gut and do the best they can.
God.
And it's like, well, hey, asshole, your take is total immunity. Your take is not, let's like go on a case-by-case basis and leave it up to judgment.
Right.
That's not your take.
Yeah.
So you're backing out of the position that you say you have, and it's just so gross. Could you imagine taking that position? As if there's never, ever been an instance of police brutality or purposeful wrongdoing by cops. Like, what fucking planet are we living on? And this stems also from his ideology of, I need to have total immunity as president. Not, you know, nothing I do should be under the microscope, and you can't even look into my intentions, as fucking Chief Justice John Roberts said.
Yeah.
So that was one other part I wanted to bring up. And then the other thing is...
he got asked about the J6 rioters and, you know, whether he was really going to pardon them. And he was like, yeah, the innocent ones. And she's like, they all were found guilty. And went through the stats of, here's how many police officers were assaulted, and here were their injuries, et cetera. And he just totally changed the subject to, like, you know, Palestine protesters. And
and finally, and this is just to the broader point of, it appears like Trump is imploding. He, in a rally, he said he called Chuck Schumer a Palestinian for not going to the speech of Netanyahu, and then he also went on to call Chuck Schumer a, quote, proud member of Hamas. So I'd just like to take a moment to tell everybody who ever tried to make the argument that Donald Trump is anti-war.
Oh, yeah.
Suck my nuts, you dumb bitches.
Well,
please.
And, just one other note on that. JD Vance also did not go to that speech.
I guess he's a Palestinian and a member of Hamas. I like how he uses Palestinian as an insult.
I know,
right?
It's disgusting.
I mean,
he's completely disgusting. He's been doing all that stuff about, like, Kamala's husband's a crappy Jew, and he can't imagine how any Jewish person would vote for her. It's just, yeah, it's so gross. I mean, remember how Republicans seized on when Joe Biden said that, like, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black thing?
Now,
like, he's doing exactly that.
Jewish.
Yeah, with Jewish people, and they're cool with it.
And he's insisting that, you know, if you're Jewish, that 1-to-1 means you have to be pro-Israel and them doing a genocide.
Right.
Which is an anti-Semitic position in and of itself.
That's
to
exactly
insist
right.
that you're Jewish, you have to be in favor of the Israeli genocide of Palestinians.
Yeah, you must be a monolith. You must only be a single issue voter on this one issue, which is being pro-Netanyahu and pro-genocide. You were 100% correct that is, in fact, anti-Semitic.
What's crazy is I don't doubt he can somehow make U.S. policy towards Israel worse, which is a crazy thing to think about, because it seems like this is as bad as it could ever possibly fucking get. He will find a way to make it worse.
Yeah.
I guarantee you he will find a way to make it worse.
Yeah.
Because remember, it was also his policies that laid the groundwork for what happened on October 7th.
That's exactly right.
The Abraham Accords, moving the embassy to Jerusalem, those policies were specifically designed to put their middle finger up to Palestinians and say, no hope. You're done. You're under the boot fucking forever. Deal with it. That was the whole point.
Yep.
And now the reporting is he's going to get $100 million from Miriam Adelson. And the quid pro quo is you need to let Israel annex the entire West Bank for this money. So that's how he'll make it worse. That's not Gaza, but that's the West Bank.
Yeah.
So it'll be worse for Palestinians somehow, which again is crazy to think of. I'm not letting Biden off the hook at all. I'm not letting Kamala off the hook at all. Their stuff is grotesque and it stands on its own. But without a doubt, they're going to find a way to make it worse, and he's broadcasting it to the world with these kinds of attacks.
Yeah, which is why BB very clearly prefers for Trump to win the election.
Of course. All right, guys, we had Dr. Jill Stein, the Green Party presidential candidate, on the show this week. Definitely check it out. It was a phenomenal interview. We got in current events, and we got to all of her policies. So check it out below. Substack, you can sign up for free, or you can sign up for $5 a month and get the video version and get it a day earlier.